There is a city named Chengde 250 kilometers away from Beijing. In 1701, when the fourth Emperor Kangxi was traveling here, he was attracted by the beautiful scenes immediately. So he issued an order that a palace must be constructed there. Rehe Temporary Palace was basically completed in 1708 after 5 years construction. In the same year, Emperor Kangxi renamed it by writing the tablet Bishu Shanzhuang, mountain resort for avoiding the heat. The huge project of mountain resorts construction was not finished until 1792. After 3 emperors of Qing dynasty had well constructed for 89 years, the most magnificent classic imperial garden was finally completed in Chengde. In view of terrain, Mountain Resort is in fact a microcosm of China. In the west, there is a mountainous area which is just like the western plateau of China. In the northeast, there is a plain with plenty of green trees. As the Mongolia grassland and northeast forests, or the lake areas lay in the southeast, resembling waterside villages of southern Yangtze. This royal garden that resembles a blueprint, much in little, represents the landscape of China and incarnates the emperor's ambition of conquering. The southern part of the mountain resort is a concentration of palaces where the emperors handled the political affairs and where the royal families lived. It is a key part of the resort. Compared with the grand and solemn Forbidden City, the palaces here, which were built of common blue brick and gray tiles, are characterized by its simplicity and elegance. The Yueshe door is the main door of the palace area. It is very simple and plain. Only the commanding copper lines that lie in front of the door demonstrate the imperial power. Through the Yueshe door, there is a square yard covered by palms. To the north of the yard stands the main palace of the mountain resort. This palace looks plain at first sight, but actually priceless. The whole palace was built with valuable Nanwood, a now extinct wood that formed high mountains and deep valleys of Yunnan province, which is a few thousand kilometers away. It was very treasured at that time and worth even more than gold of the same weight. The center part of partition doors and 735 pieces of ceilings made by Nanwood are decorated with patterns of Chinese character 1, bat, and peach, which stand for auspiciousness and longevity. Most emperors of Qing dynasty worked diligently. They would not stop dealing with state affairs even when traveling. When the emperor stayed in the mountain resort, he handled political mandates here as well as interviewed envoys and held important ceremonies. The back part of the palace area is the living quarters for the emperor and his concubines. The biggest palace was Yanbaozhi Shuang Hall. The main room was furnished magnificently. The room in the west is the residence where 4 emperors had lived. The last palace in this area is a compact but smart 2-floor building. There are no stairs in the building. You can only go inside by walking through the steps in a small rockery in front of the building. It is a really clever design. In some periods of the Qing dynasty, some emperors spent over half a year here. The daily express delivery of documents by horses facilitated the emperor's handling of state business. Therefore, Chengde Mountain Resort seemed to become a second political center in China outside Beijing. After all, the resort is a summer palace. Hence, emperors had large stretches of garden areas built for rest and entertainment in order to satisfy their wishes of returning nature. The terrain of this resort was barely altered when gardens were being built. Instead, the design of forests, streams, and lakes followed the natural terrain, making the resort part of the ambient environment. Most landscape and architectures are located by the side of lakes, showing Chinese gardens' unique aesthetics. The biggest island in the lake is Ruizhou, on which a lot of interesting buildings are located. The lake-facing palace is comfortable in unbearable hot summer because cool wind can go through the building and expelling the stifling hotness. This building is modeled after the Yanyu Lo, Tower of Mist and Rain. A large rockery is built near the building while a lotus pond is by the side. Different from symmetric palace architecture, this building is in indefinite style and has simple ornament. A door in the wall of the west passage frames pleasant lotus pond scenes afar. This garden in the garden here is called Changlang Yu, an attempt to imitate famous Suzhou Gardens Changlang Ting. Although small in size, it creates a calm atmosphere with streams flowing through rockery. There is a special architecture for watching opera. It was built particularly for the 6th Emperor Qianlong. It is a really nice thing to enjoy the favorite opera performance in the cool lakeside breeze. Besides Ruizhou, there's another peninsula surrounded by a lake in 3 sides, named Jinshan Dao, and it is totally artificial. The best sightseeing place in lake area is a pavilion in Jinshan Dao. There are 3 floors in the pavilion, and this Jinshan pavilion commands the whole scenery of the mountain resort. In the north of the mountain resort, the scenery takes on a totally different look. Overlooked on the wall of the resort, there are 12 big splendid temples standing on small hills nearby, scattered in a picturesque disorder and centered around the resort. They were called 8 outer temples. The 8 outer temples are different from other temples. Their size, location, and scale were decided by Emperor himself, and the next only to the imperial palaces in status. The aim of constructing these temples is to unite and appease the minority groups and to receive minority leaders. They are built based on the custom of the Mongolian, Tibetan, and other ethnic minorities who believe in Tibetan Buddhism and Muslim. They are a good historical record of befriending all ethnic groups in China. Puning Temple is the first temple built by Emperor Qianlong in the resort. It was built based on a hill. Along the natural slope, multi-story architectures and various height steps were built. Typical Han-style temples are located from the main door to the main hall. However, behind this hall, there's another world. There's a tall mezzanine construction in the center with a red stage, white stage, and 4 white Lama pagodas around. It is a typical Tibet temple layout. In the main hall of the Puning Temple, there's Guanyin Bodhisattva with 1,000 arms and 1,000 eyes. It is the biggest wood Buddha in the world, as high as 4 floors building, about 110 tons in weight, and it has 42 arms on it. The whole surface of the Buddha was gilded and highly decorated. Its facial expression is very vivid as well. What is interesting is that there is a small Buddha placed on the top of the huge ones. It is said that the small Buddha was Bodhisattva's teacher. Placing it on the top is to show respect to his teacher. After the Puning Temple was built, Emperor Qianlong ordered his temple constructed. This temple was modeled after the Potala Palace in Tibet, but one smaller. That is why it is also called Mini Potala Palace. This is the biggest temple among the 8 outer temples. The main building is called Da Hong Tai, or Big Red Stage, and it is accentuated by the white architecture surrounding it. The Wanfa Guiyi Hall in its center is even more luxurious. Its top was covered by 14,000 liang of gold, showing its splendor and the empire's power. Eight years later, in order to welcome the Tibet religious leader Panchen VI, who came to celebrate the emperor's birthday, Qianlong had this temple built for Panchen. It was used for his daily worship of Buddha and also served as living quarters. The stone in the temple bears the inscription of the reasons why the temple was built in 4 languages: Man, Han, Mongolian, and Tibetan. To add more enjoyment, many rockeries and oak trees had been placed on the hills inside the temple, which make people feel as if it is a garden, not a temple. Sightseeing Mountain Resort is like visiting a Chinese architecture museum. Here you can find splendid imperial architecture as well as graceful and classic garden scenery. At the same time, there are temples with Man, Mongolian, Tibetan-style temples, as well as traditional Chinese-style pavilions. Nowadays, the resort is no longer regarded as an imperial palace. Instead, it is frequented by common people. No matter local or tourists, you may find your own enjoyment here. Mountain Resort has become a paradise for deer as well because of its natural environment. Now there are a few hundred free-range deer living in the resort. In the beautiful environment, harmony between human and deer impresses every visitor and offers them good memories. In 1994, the UNESCO World Heritage Committee considered that the Mountain Resort and its 8 outer temples is not only valuable for aesthetic research, but also keeps historical relics of the last period of Chinese feudal society. On 17 December 1994, the Mountain Resort and its outlying temples were listed as World Heritage Site.